Okay, so today we're going to start chapter 5 and talk about ratios. And a ratio is a comparison of two quantities by division. And we're going to write a ratio, or you can write a ratio, 3 different ways. So at the first example, it says, write the ratio of monkeys to hamburgers 3 ways. Okay, so how many monkeys are there? 2. And how many hamburgers are there? 3. So we can write this as 2 to 3. We can use the word 2. We can write it as 2 colon 3 using a colon, or we can write it as a fraction 2 over 3. It does not matter which way you prefer. I usually like to use the colon, but it doesn't matter unless it specifies which way to write it. So the next example says write the ratio of black keys to total keys. Okay, so this is a piano keyboard. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 total keys. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 black keys. So black to total would be 5 to 12. So now it says write the ratio of white keys to black keys. Well, there are 7 white keys to 5 black keys. And now write the ratio of total keys, which is 12, to white keys, which is 7. So you just have to be careful about the order that the question's asking it in and making sure that you're putting it in the right order. So if you were in class today, what we would have done is taken a little survey and asked people whether they prefer Chick-fil-A or Chipotle. So we're just going to say, let me see, that 6 people said Chick-fil-A and 4 people said Chipotle. So it says, write the ratio of people who prefer Chick-fil-A to Chipotle. So that would be 6 to 4. Okay, and we can simplify that because 6 and 4 are both divisible by 2 and make it 3 to 2. So then when it says write the ratio of total people to people who prefer Chick-fil-A, so if it was 6 and 4, then we surveyed 10 people. So total to Chick-fil-A would be 10 to 6, and we can simplify that as 5 to 3. So the next part is invisible to teleport, okay? So let's just say that we now have 12 people in our class, and I'm going to say that it was even. It was 6 and 6. So write the ratio of people who would rather teleport to the people who would rather be invisible. So that would be a ratio of 6 to 6. We could simplify that as 1 to 1, and the ratio of invisible to total would be 6 to 12, or 1 to 2. So this next part says you can use decimals to express and compare ratios. Write the ratio 7 to 3 as a decimal, round to the nearest hundredth. Okay, it's kind of hard to see, but it's written as 7 to 3, which would mean 7 over 3. Which means that we can do 7 divided by 3. 3 goes into 7 2 times, that's 6. 7 minus 6 is 1. Bring down a 0. 3 goes into 10 3 times, that's 9. You can see what's going to keep happening here is we're going to keep getting 10, 10, 10. So when it says round to the nearest hundredth, I look at the thousandths place, and it would be 2.33, right? Because, let me explain that one more time. If this is the spot that I'm rounding to, I have to look at the 1 to the right to say, well, is this 5 or more? No, so it's not going to raise that score. So it's just going to stay 2.33. Okay, on your next page, it says an official U.S. flag has a length to width ratio of 19 to 10. The largest U.S. flag measures 505 feet by 255 feet. Is this an official U.S. flag? Okay, so if the ratio is 19 to 10, okay, and our flag measures 505 to 255, what we want to know is whether these are the same ratio. So I can either check to see if they have the same simplest form. I could check their decimal. I'm going to go ahead and see what are 505 and 255 both divisible by. They're both divisible by 5. So 5 goes into 5 once. It goes into, so that would be 0, right? It goes into 0 0 times, and then it goes into 5 1. So that's 101 over, and then 5 would go into 255 5 times, that's 25, and it would go in there 1 time. So 101 over 51. So is this in simplest form? Yes, it is. Is it the same simplest form as 19 over 10? It is. So therefore, because they're not the same simplest form, it's not an official U.S. flag. Okay, let's look at, it says, two ratios that name the same number are equal ratios. So then it says, two students report the ratio of the number of girls in a class to the total number of students. One student says the ratio is 18 to 30. The other says the ratio is 9 to 15. Are the two ratios equal? So let's look at 18 to 30 and then 9 to 15. So let's put these in simplest form and see if they mean the same thing. 18 and 30 are both divisible by 6. That's 3 over 5. 9 and 15 are both divisible by 3. Oops, and that's 3 over 5. So yes, they're equal. They have the same simplest form. So it says you can find equal ratios by writing a ratio as a fraction and then finding equivalent fractions. So it says find two ratios that are equivalent to 12 over 15. You can multiply. I could multiply them both by 10 to get 120 over 150. I could multiply them both by 2 to get 24 over 30. What are these both divisible by? 3. I could divide and get 4 over 5. All of those ratios would be equal to 12 over 15. So with 10 over 16, I'm going to start with division. They're both divisible by 2. That's 5 over 8. I could multiply this by 2 to get 20 over 32. I could multiply it by 5 and get 50 over 80. It's really up to you. There's tons and tons of different equivalent ratios. The next question says a black bear weighs about 325 pounds. A polar bear weighs about 1,000 pounds. Write a ratio in simplest form to compare the weights of the bears. Okay, so I'm just going to write it as 325 to 1,000. So what are those both divisible by? Well, I know they're both divisible by 25, so that would be 13 over 40. Are those two things divisible by anything the same? They're not, so that's in simplest form. And then the next question, or the last question, says, an average adult male gorilla living in the wild weighs about 350 pounds. In zoos, an adult male gorilla can weigh about 750 pounds. Write a ratio in simplest form to compare the weight of gorillas in the wild to those in zoos. So the wild is 350 and the zoos are 750. So what are those both divisible by? Well, real easy, we can tell that they're divisible by 10. So that's 35 over 75. And then those are both divisible by 5. So that's 7 over 15. Are those divisible by anything the same? They're not. So this would be our ratio in simplest form.